Ever heard the phrase, knowledge is power? Well, get ready. We're going to discuss the common mistakes that delinquent property auction buyers make right now.
Hey everybody, I'm Randy, and today we have Ted Thomas, the Tax Lien Certificate and Tax Deed Authority, and he is going to share some of the common mistakes people make investing in tax delinquent property and how to avoid those mistakes. Before we get into those common mistakes that are related to tax delinquent property, Ted, could you briefly explain what tax delinquent property means?
Well, sure, I'm happy to do that. A delinquent tax property is simply the result of a property owner not paying their property tax. Now, the legislature of all the states makes the rules, and they govern the state, and they make the rule, they mandate that all property owners must pay property tax. Now, unfortunately, a small percentage of people don't pay their property tax. Now, if they don't pay the tax, now what's going to happen? Well, the county has then the burden of trying to collect the tax. So what does the county do? They send numerous notices of default. Then they make a lien, and then they make a levy, and then they actually take the property. They confiscate the property, and the county doesn't want the property. So by law, the county has to sell that property at a public auction. Okay, they're going to sell the property, and when they do sell the property, they're going to sell it without a mortgage and without a deed of trust. The county treasurer does all that work. So the starting bid at the auction could be 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, and imagine no mortgage or deed of trust loan. Imagine buying a property without a loan on it and buying for 10, 20, or 30 cents on the dollar.
Well, what do you find to be the number one most common mistake that people make in the tax defaulted business?
Well, I'm going to have to give you a lot of mistakes. It's a big list. My goodness, it's going to take me a little while. But the number one mistake that people make is, what do you think they do? They overbid on the property. And if they don't overbid, they do things like they bid on properties that they haven't even looked at. So many investors don't look at the property. That's probably the biggest mistake they make, because they're bidding and they're bidding blind. What if the property's a junker? What if that delinquent property happens to be in a bad neighborhood where they're afraid to even drive? So most newcomers that start out, they don't have a lot of money. So if they're starting out and they're buying a property that's not so hot, that needs to be fixed up, what are they going to do to fix it up? So it turns out that people make a lot of mistakes. Now, tax defaulted properties generally are neglected. They're used and abused. Sometimes they just need minor repair and some TLC, but other times they might need more than a Band-Aid. It might take some serious investment to take care of it. So my point is, you don't know what you don't know. So if you bought a real junker, what are you going to do it? Keep in mind, when you purchase at a tax defaulted or a tax delinquent auction, the sale is final. When that gavel comes down, when the auctioneer puts his hand down and says sold, well, then it's over. And you give them your money, they're not giving it back. So if you buy something that is not a good property, you can't go and say, well, I don't like this one, and we'll ask for your money back. They are not going to give you money back. It's a final sale. So simultaneously with the sale when it's going on, many bidders have not evaluated the neighborhood, so they're making a mistake. Many bidders don't know anything about the costs in the neighborhood. Should they be bidding more? Should they be bidding less? You always want to be bidding less. Why? Because you have margin. If you don't have margin, how on earth are you going to make money? All right, most individuals, there's another big mistake, have no selling skills. They don't even have a selling strategy in the back of their mind. Well, how are you going to sell something if you don't know what the selling prices are in the neighborhood? So if you buy a property sight unseen and you haven't been to the neighborhood and you haven't checked on the comparable sales, you're buying blind. Well, you wouldn't want to drive your car blind. You'd run into something. Now you're going to run into the fact that you can't sell the property. What will you do if you can't sell the property? We teach people to use Craigslist, eBay, electronic sites. We teach you how to sell these used and abused properties using Zillow and a whole bunch of other things. So you're getting the idea. There could be a lot of mistakes when buying a tax defaulted property.
Well, what warning signals or real red flags should you be on the lookout for when you're investing in a tax delinquent property?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of red flags that are flying like this, all right? Number one, when you buy a tax delinquent property, does it have an IRS lien on it? Have you checked the federal liens? Have you checked the municipal liens? Those liens don't leave the property. I've said many, many times, if you watch my videos, that the treasurer will they'll wipe out the mortgage and they'll wipe out the deed of trust. That means there's no lien on the property for a mortgage or a deed of trust. But I didn't say that the federal lien would be gone. I didn't say the municipal lien would be gone. Talk about a red flag. If you end up with an IRS lien on it, do you want to pay someone else's IRS lien?
Well, what steps can investors take to ensure that they have a clear understanding of what liens or, encumbrances are attached to the property, Ted?
Okay, if you want to know, you need to get a coach or a guide or someone to help you that's already navigated all these obstacles. It's like landmines are out there. They got to get around all these little things that could blow up your deal. So you probably need someone to help you. You don't know what you don't know. But here, I'll give you the insider. What the coach and what the guide's going to do, I'll give it to you right now. It's simple as this. Go to the public records and research the property. If you don't know how, if you're one of our clients, I can tell you right now, what we do is have classes every single day, but we have definite research classes every Friday. You need to find out what liens are on that property, what encumbrances are on that property. You got to find out if there's ingress and egress problems. You've got to find out what the zoning is. You need to learn how to research if you expect to be a property buyer in the tax, lien, and deed arena.
What could the consequences be of buying a tax delinquent property without having a clear exit strategy?
Well, I think exit strategy is the most important thing. So I personally think of my exit strategy before I do anything else. What's an exit strategy? That means I want to sell the property. I buy these properties where I got margin, okay? The selling price is this and I'm buying at this. I've got some margin for profit. All right, you're not going to have any profit if you don't understand what the selling price of the property is going to be. So when I look at a property, I find out what the comparables in the neighborhood are. Now, I don't have to do all that myself. It's online. You can find out. You can have a real estate broker find out. You can do research. That's the key. Do research so you have a strategy to sell. Now, if the selling price in the neighborhood are way up here and I can buy it down here, I've got that margin that you need. If you don't have margin, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to have a return on your investment. All right, now empty properties are a problem. And tax defaulted properties almost are always empty. So if you're going to buy this property, even if it's empty, well, you got to do something about getting it sold relatively quickly, because these are a target for the homeless people. They're also a target for people that want to be squatters, all right? Now, I used to be in the homeowners in a country club, all right? So I'm the vice president of the homeowners, and I got the dirty duty of going out to these beautiful homes in the country club, had squatters in them. You don't know where they're going to be. You don't know what you don't know. But getting that property, they couldn't sell those properties till they get the squatters out. You're going to have the same problem if you don't get on the ball and get that thing sold. So exit strategy is very important.
Ted, I know you've got 30 years in this business. You've seen it all. Do you have an example of a common mistake that newcomers make?
Common mistake is they overbid. Now, what do I mean overbid? In other words, they know if they've done their homework, they know the selling price is in that neighborhood of this, but they keep bidding up and get too close to it. Sometimes they can even go past it. All right, so attempting to sell a property that's used and abused, might need some work. Oh, you don't want to even try to do that. You don't want to have to rent a property that you spent too much money for. So most sellers, they need to be competitive in the marketplace. You're not going to be competitive in the marketplace if you overbid. If you're waiting for a buyer to come along and pay for an overbid property, that's like waiting for the next fool. If you try to get a broker and think they're going to solve your problem, they're not going to. A lot of people think, oh, I'll just call a broker and they'll solve this problem. They won't. They don't even want to get near you because your price is too high. So you have to make sure that when you bid, if anything, underbid. Don't be, the only time you want to be the winning bidder is if there's not hundreds of bidders in that room. There's hundreds of bidders and people keep bidding it up and bidding it up. You have to know what your limit is so that you keep your margin, okay? Entrepreneurs, biggest mistake they make is they don't know anything about selling. And if they overbid on a property, how are you going to sell the property if you've overbid on it?
So what advice do you have for a first-time investor who's nervous about making that first investment in a tax-delinquent property?
Well, the first advice I have for anybody that becomes an investor in any of these kind of deals is don't quit your job. The next advice I have is don't quit your job. So don't quit, just keep your job, okay? But work on the tax lien and deed business so that you've got yourself plenty of margin. You're not going to overbid. Now, if you don't overbid, now you've got a great chance to be able to sell that property. If you do this correctly, you'll make enough money to not only make your car payments, your house payments, but you'll have money put away to do the next deal. Now, sometimes when you're watching videos like this, everybody that's making a video is making it look easy, okay? If you're reading about it, you're looking at it in a book, they're making it look easy. Folks, I'm gonna tell you, if you're starting a business and you're on low funds now, that's gonna be tough to get that business going if it's any business. This business is gonna be even tougher because I don't know what condition and you don't know what condition these properties are. So this is not like falling out of a rocking chair. This is something you're gonna have to think about so that you keep your margins in your deal. You wanna make sure that you don't overbid on any of these properties. Think of it just like you would if you're putting a garden in your backyard. You're gonna have to plant the seeds while you're learning it, okay? Then you're gonna have to put the water on the seeds so they'll grow, lots of sun come down. You're gonna have to nurture this deal until you make the whole thing work. It's not gonna magically happen that you're gonna buy a property today, sell it tomorrow afternoon, and you're gonna get rich. Folks, when it comes to education, I had to learn this like you had to learn this. There's a couple of people that I kind of follow what they say. So years ago, Benjamin Franklin was one of the founding fathers. He had a very simple way of getting things across to people. And he said this: invest in knowledge, it pays high interest. Would you write that down? Invest in knowledge, it pays high interest. A more recent famous person is Warren Buffett. And he simply said, education is how you eliminate risk. Let me say that again. Education is how you eliminate risk. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you on the next video. Go below and get yourself signed up.
And before you leave, don't forget, there's a link in the description below. Click it and get a free gift from Ted.